Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Mobility Fit with me, Jacqui. Today we're going to get straight into it. We're going to work with your chest and your shoulders today. But first, equipment list. So you are going to need, they're back again. You need either some yoga blocks if you happen to have some books, chunky textbooks that I know you're reading, or anything of some substantial size. You'll need 2 of them. You'll also need some sort of, I've got a yoga strap, but I also have a band. I would say that you need something that's maybe a little bit bendier or a very long towel. If you have a very long towel, then you don't need this. If you're using something that's bendy like a resistance band, then you will also need a towel that is more sturdy because they're going to be used for 2 separate things. You also might need a cushion to make this a little bit more comfier on your knees, possibly, or just something to prop up underneath. Obviously, the yoga mat as per, and possibly if you've got a broom lying around, that might also be useful because you're either going to use a broom or the resistance band for one of the exercises. So either or, we will get onto that one shortly. So plan for today, we are going to do a little bit of warming up through the shoulders to start off with. We're going to have a look at your range of movement through there, and then we're going to crack on with, oh, I forgot this thing again, it's back. So we're going to do some more myofascial release of your chest area. So again, like I said last week, if you've got a lacrosse ball, a hockey ball, an avocado pip, something like that, that you're going to be able to put against you that won't slip, whereas a cricket ball might slip. So yeah, just something that is a little bit hard that you can press against and put your chest into, basically. All right, let's get going. So, warming ourselves up for today, what we're going to do is we're going to start off in a kneeling position. So you're going to bring yourself onto all 4s for me, and then from there, what we're going to be doing is you need to place yourself so you are relatively close to a wall. I'm using the usual space here by my radiator, but if you want to position yourself basically as close as you can to a wall, because what we're going to do is we're going to be creating some circular movements with your arm to look at the whole range of movement that your shoulder joint can do. But I want to test how close you can get to the wall without touching the wall. What I mean by that is if you are in the position, so you're in all 4s, and all you're going to be doing is raising your arm up, taking it up behind you, and then bringing it back down again, okay? So if you are quite restricted in the shoulder, what will tend to happen is you won't be able to keep it nice and close to your body when it comes up above you here. You'll probably end up sticking your arm further out. So what that would mean is if you're by a wall, you probably are going to have to come out here so that you don't touch the wall on your way around. Whereas if you've got quite a good mobile shoulder joint, it means that you probably can tuck yourself in quite close to the wall and get around without touching the wall, okay? So you're sweeping it up and through. What we're going to do is we're going to do about 4 or 5 in one direction, then we're going to swap it and do 4 or 5 in this direction. So a couple more. So again, you're trying to keep your arm as close as you can to the body and not touch the wall. And if you need to, because you gave yourself too much space to start with, always creep yourself in a little bit. So once we've done that on both sides, what I'm now going to get you to do is going to turn around, obviously do the other side. And this is where it's quite good for you to compare and see whether the distance that you had on your first arm, do you have that on your second arm, or are you having to bring yourself away slightly from the wall? So again, same thing. So you're going to bring your arm up, round, and behind. Oh, there we go. There is a key sign that I need to back away from the radiator slightly. Bringing you up, arm and through. So that's 2, 3. We're going to do 2 more in this direction. 4 and 5. And now we're going to reverse it. So you're going to go behind first. So taking it back and through, which is a little bit like if you were doing front crawl when you were swimming, when you were younger. And 1 more. And back down, okay? So that is just loosening up through the shoulder joint a little bit through there. What we're going to do now is we're going to move into a standing position where we're going to do some more movements just to get you moving as well. And for this, you will either need the band or the broomstick. but I'll show you both. Okay, so we're going to do a similar sort of thing with same sort of motion with the shoulders, except you're either going to use a resistance band or you're going to use a broomstick. The resistance band is actually slightly easier because it has a little bit more give in it, so it can allow you to kind of increase your shoulder range if necessary. So what I would say is we'll start off with this one and then I'll also show you with the broomstick too. So all you're going to do is you're going to grab the end of your resistance band, starting with it roughly round down by your shoulders, and then all you're going to be doing is you're going to try and take your arms up and round and behind. But as you can see, I didn't bend my elbows to get that through. So what sometimes people do to cheat is they come up and they bend their elbows to shorten the distance to allow to get the rotation through. But all we're trying to do here is we're actually just trying to move through your shoulder joint. So you're just rotating backwards and forwards. Now, if this seems pretty easy, the way that you can then work out and find what your range is you start to then bring your hands a little bit closer to each other, which I'll now show on the broomsticks. It's a little bit easier too. So you can still do this with the band, but I'll also show on the broom too. So obviously a wide grip would be all the way at the end of the broomstick, come in all the way through like we just did. And then, you know, that feels easy, doesn't feel like there's that much of a restriction on there. So you just walk your hands in a little bit, and I mean a little bit, because if you suddenly go to here, you will notice the difference. So just walk your hands in a little bit, and then again, same sort of movement. I'll show you from the side as well. Same rotation round. So then we come in a little bit more, because I'm like, that still doesn't feel too different. Then we come back and through, and again, round, and again. Still not too bad. Walking your hands in a little bit more still if you can. If you can't, if you've got to the point where you get stuck and you're like, no, this isn't going any further, you need to come back out, walk your hands back out again and continue. So I want you to find where your range is. So I would say that mine is probably about here, to be fair. And then I want you to complete 10. So that would be 2. We're going to keep this going. 3. So you should feel this opening up through your chest. 4. And then 5 more. So feeling like it's on this sort of range here. You're probably on 6. So let's make that 7 and 8. 2 more. I'll show you from the side again. 9 and last one. 10. Good. Awesome. Now there is another one that we can do, especially if you're using a broom. You can do this with the band, but I tend to end up doing this with just either the stick that we have when we're normally in the gym, or if I was at home using the broomstick. So with this one again, I would go quite wide to start with. And from here, you're going to be taking just make sure you've got enough space to move it around. You're going to take the broom or band around. So you're coming around, creating a shoulder rotation here, and back down, and then this arm takes over. But again, we're not ideally bending. I'm going to swap over onto this one because it's a little bit shorter. We're ideally not bending the arms per se, as in we're not bending at the elbow. That makes a little bit more sense. So you're going to go in one direction, and then once you've done about 5 or 6 in one direction, we're then going to swap and go in the other direction. Obviously, again, the thing with doing it with the band, which is probably a little bit easier for this one, is you can stretch the band to allow that range for what you can do. Because if I was just to stick with the band as it is, I might not be able to get my arm through. And now, those arms should feel a little bit looser. The joint should be a little bit smoother. And also, it gives you a sort of idea of where you're at in terms of what your range is and how, shall we say, how close a circle you create with your shoulder without it being, it should be ideally a nice big circle. If your circle is a little bit smaller, it's because you're a little bit restricted in the joint. Not a problem, but let's see if we can ease that out a little bit. Okay, so we're now going to move into we've loosened up that area. We're now going to see if we can try and work into the tissue a little bit more. So you're going to grab your ball and we're going to do a little bit of work on your pec minor, which can sometimes get a little bit tight. So to find your pec minor, what I would suggest is you find your clavicle, which is that bone that runs across here, also known as your collarbone. Come to the end of there, roll off it slightly, and then create a sort of diagonal position here. Your pec minor is just going to be to the side of where your armpit is, in line with that diagonal action that it runs in. So just coming across to there, that is where the ball is going to go. You can move it like we did with your glutes in and around that area, so it doesn't have to stay in the same place. So you're going to find that pec minor, pin it down. You're then going to come against a wall, I would suggest, or something that you can lean into. Could be a door frame, that would also work. Have a little bit of a split stance. You can lean into it, and then from there, you're basically just moving this arm around in the hope that, and moving the ball down if necessary, because you can either move on the ball and rotate around like in circles like we did last week or the week before, and then other ones you can move your arm but keep your torso where it is. So you're just basically creating different movements with your arm that you might do, which will have an impact on your shoulder. You can go back to doing circles around in this region, so just below that collarbone, just going down towards where your main chest area is. And then we're going to swap, do literally the same thing on the other side. So finding that place again, coming in, tacking it down on the ball, make sure I don't trip over all of my bits of equipment, and then again leaning into the wall. And then you guys can't really see, but I'm doing exactly the same thing as I did on the other side. So we'll start off with me moving around the ball, and similarly to when we did this with the glutes, if there's a sore bit that you find, maybe stay on that and then go through all the different movements that you can do with your arm whilst pinning that area down, so you're working through that tissue. Then you can come back to your circles again. Ooh, this side is definitely tighter as well. You can tell that I'm stronger on my right side. And just a couple more moments on there, and slowly bring yourself off. Cool. All right, done with that. Do not need it anymore, so you can pop that away, and we will get on with the more relaxing part of today. Okay, so now we're going to move on to more of the stretching element that we've got going on, so a little bit more relaxed and chilled. So first thing that you can do, you're going to need to grab either your blocks, your books, or whatever it is that you're using, because these are going to be used on quite a few of these poses that we're going to be doing. So the first one is a yoga pose that is called the puppy dog pose. So it's very similar to the starting position of cat-cow, and yeah, similar to cat-cow basically. So you want to make sure that your knees and hips are stacked on top of each other. Now, normally if you were going to go into cat-cow, you'd then either do this, or child's pose would take you back onto your heels. So except this time, what we're going to do is you're going to walk your hands forward and keep your hips and your knees stacked on top of each other. And you're going to bring yourself down towards the floor. Now, this is the basic position, but I will also demonstrate some other ones. So if this feels comfortable for you, just stay here. You're going to have your head looking down towards the floor, or if you can, have your looking forward. So you can either bring forehead to floor, or we are looking forward. These are the beginner options for you to choose from. If you want to deepen the pose a little bit more, your next option is to grab the blocks, take them out in front of you, and then from there, just holding onto them, bringing yourself down. Just means that you've got a little bit more space. Or your final option, I would bring mine a little bit closer to me, is you're going to bring your elbows onto them, and then from there, come up into this position here. So like a little prayer pose, and it's just forcing your chest down a little bit further. So what I want you to do, there are your options. You've got your slightly more challenging ones with the blocks, or you've got the basic ones without the blocks. I want you to choose your position. I'm going to go with this one. And we're just going to hold it here for a moment. So just work with that breath and just enjoy some downtime.
So you should feel like your chest is opening up and you've got a little bit of a stretch going through those shoulders as well. And just a couple more seconds here. And ever so slowly bring yourself back up to the position.
So the next thing we're going to do is Camel Pose. So for this one, I would recommend, if you've got quite sensitive knees, because we're going to be kneeling on them and putting quite a lot of force through them, I would recommend that you get a little bit of a blanket or a cushion just to put underneath your knees. I'm going to use it because they're feeling a little bit sensitive today. You also need those blocks again, and this time the blocks are actually going to be used for the more basic version of this. If you want to challenge yourself, then you don't need the blocks. So we'll start off with the basic and then I'll show you the slightly more challenging one afterwards. So you're going to bring yourself onto knees for kneeling, and then you're going to use the blocks and walk yourself. Let me just move my battery. Walk yourself back so that the blocks are now behind you, and then you're going to press forward with your hips and lean back. So what you're making sure is that you're pushing through your glutes and lifting your hips up. You're not dropping your hips down here, you're lifting them up, which is allowing that chest to open. You can either keep your neck as it is, just looking up at the sky, or if you want and you feel comfortable, you can allow that neck to drop back behind you, and you're just going to hold this here. When you bring yourself out of this position, you're going to slowly lift yourself up and then bring yourself back down. When you're doing that, make sure that your head is one of the last things to come up. You do not want to whip your head forwards, because otherwise that's just looking for whiplash, isn't it really, and a sore neck. So that is the basic version. I'm going to show you the slightly more challenging one now, and then we'll do whichever variation together. So for slightly more of a challenge, you're then going to tuck your heels so that there's a little bit of lift off the floor, and then from there you're going to reach back with one side, reach back with the other, so it's a little bit lower down because obviously the blocks were here, so you're allowing yourself to go further down and therefore open up your chest more. And then same as before, if you want to have your head in neutral position, you can do, or if you feel comfortable to allow it to open, do so. And then we're just going to relax here for a moment. Make sure you push those hips forward. And slowly bring yourself out, lifting up, and head being the last thing that we move into. So we've got two poses left. We're going to do one that's called thread the needle, so you don't need the blocks for that one, so you can put them away, we don't need them. And then we've got a final one to finish off with, which is a little bit more relaxing. So what I need you to do is to come onto all fours. Now I'm going to have to show you on both sides, only because my wall is in the way. I'm not going to be able to get my arm through properly. So I'm going to show you the left hand side first, and then I'll turn and face the other way, and we'll do the right hand side together as well. So for your left hand side, you're going to bring your knees in line with your hips, your hands underneath your shoulders. You're then going to press through your right arm to allow you to lift up your left. So you're going to be looking up towards your fingertips on the left hand side, and that should be in line, ideally, with your fingers on the right hand side of the body. So then from here, you're going to scoop that arm through and then rest that on the floor and place your head on the floor. Bring your right arm now further up in front of you and just relax in this position here, and keep holding. And slowly walk that right arm back in, and then bring yourself up into a fours. Now you're going to do literally the same thing on the right hand side, except I'm going to turn and face the other direction so I've got space. So you're going to take your right arm up looking up towards the fingers, trying to keep a nice long line from one set of fingers to the other. Then scoop that right arm through that hole you've created, take the left arm out in front of you and keep that position there, just relaxing into it. And creeping that left arm back, which is then going to push you up back onto all fours. Okay, so final position for today. We're going to use the blocks again, but as an alternative option, if you don't have books or blocks that you want to lie on, because that's what we're basically going to do, but you do have a foam roller, you could replace one of the blocks for this foam roller, because basically we're going to be creating a T shape with these blocks. The one that's going in the middle is going to be up on its side, so it's a little bit higher. So if you wanted, you could replace the foam roller with that block that's there. The block that is a little bit behind you is going to be slightly shorter and flatter, and we're going to be resting our head on there. So if you want to use a foam roller, feel free to do so. Otherwise, just use the pieces of equipment that you've been using before. So you're going to place yourself down, so you come into a position on the floor where, I'm just going to take out this because I don't need to be crushing my phone. That would not be a good idea. So you're going to rest the first block on your thoracic spine, and then the back block, when you position it right, is going to go where your head is. And so you can start with your knees bent. If you then want to extend them out so they're flat, you can also do that too. I would then suggest, if you've got space, which I unfortunately don't, that you then straighten out both of your arms, because then that's going to get a stretch all the way down through here too. I just don't have space to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take my hands behind my head and interlace them there, and then allow my arms to drop to the side, which will increase the stretch there. So you should hopefully be feeling this throughout your chest and shoulders. And this is the last exercise today, so let's just take a little bit of a moment to have a bit of a breather and a calm moment. Then we're going to slowly bring ourselves up. So putting your hands down to the floor, using those elbows to help drive you up into a seated position. And that is all for another load of Mobility Fit. I will see you next time, but until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and keep moving. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.